Welcome back everyone to SGTV. Today we are joined in the studio once again by Nigel Overton from Kinetic Electrical Contractors. Nigel, thank you for joining us once again. It's a pleasure to have you here. We're going to be talking about breakdowns of costs for clients. So having spoke to yourself previously and other people in the industry, it's quite mixed, I'd say, from my experience of people who do break down their costs in quotes, who used to, don't anymore, never did, never will. I just want to get your perspective on.
Yeah.
So do you do it yourself? Do you put down a breakdown for your clients?
To be honest, it would depend on the size of the job. If we're supplying a lot of kit and equipment, then often we'd split it down. As we touched on the previous sort of podcast, it's an opportunity to put as much detail in as you can in a quote to make sure the customer is aware of what they're getting. For smaller jobs, like domestic jobs and all that, no, I just
you don't bother doing it.
No, it'd be that's the price. That's the price for the job. Occasionally they will say, "Can you break it down?" And I'd normally do it, but I haven't got alarm bells ringing at that stage. But I'm just thinking, I'm not trying to do you over here, but some people like to be sort of aware of all the information.
Yeah.
So
I think for some people though, if a lot of people have in their heads who might have a very basic understanding of rates that tradespeople might charge, they might be in their head thinking tradespeople can generally, like, depending on where you live, they're probably going to ask for 150, 250 a day. I'm talking quite small teams here compared to you're doing industrial. And if they get a quote and they're thinking, oh, it's 5 days worth of work, 150 per day, and then something doesn't add up, I suppose that's when people start questioning, don't they? And then that's down to the installer themselves to explain it's not just my time, it's...
Yeah, well, nine times out of 10, if we would break down a cost, then people would be, oh, the materials are a little bit more than I thought, because they're thinking, I want a consumer unit changing. I see they're selling a consumer unit for 60 quid. It's going to cost 60 quid. And then we sort of delve into it and say, look, we're not installing a split the board. We're putting you in individual RCBOs, which is going to benefit you this way. You're going to have an SBD. That's going to benefit you. We need to change your meter tails. We've got to put an isolator before it. All these sort of like different things that they weren't sort of like aware of, and that we'll say, but once we've changed all the board, everything like that, we do a full test, like test everything. It's not a case of get it in, get it done, run away. We're doing a full sort of like survey and make sure everything's safe.
Yeah.
But before we go, so it's a point of sales. You've got to let your customers know what you're offering over and above to other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, 9 times out of 10, it's all right. And if people are going to start nitpicking and if they tried to, if you had a breakdown, you got labour and materials, and they said, oh, the materials are a bit more, is there something that we can do? Then potentially we'd offer different things. If they started saying, I'm not prepared to pay that for labour, then actually, no. See you later.
Yeah. What sort of overheads do you implement into your costs, though? Because I imagine it varies depending on your business model, but just for you particularly, what do you...
So obviously we include a markup on materials, which will cover an aspect of it. Our costings, we tend to work it around like a day rate. And then we have, if it's going to run over sort of like a standard sort of like 10-hour day, then we'd add additional hours. But because we're working all over the UK, we've got Scotland, we've got lads up in Runcorn, we're all over the place at the minute. So within that, if we're pricing a job further afield, then we'll include mileage and stuff on there.
What about accommodation?
Yeah. We'll have to accommodation, food, staying away, and sometimes that will prices out because you can't be competitive to somebody who's local. But the plus side of it with some of the things that we'll deal with is reputation. Some customers want to deal and are happy with the previous work we've done and want us there to a point regardless of the cost.
I mean, if you're staying in a hotel as well, being an electrician, it's 5-star, it's massages, it's it's all them other things, and you've got to take that into consideration, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
sorry, I have to get that in there.
It's a Premier Inn by the side of the M1.
Nothing wrong with a Premier Inn.
Very lonely life.
You said before on another episode that you've recently taken on an apprentice.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know the situation for you, but I know for some people there's almost that you bring someone in because you need the help and you want to train them and everything like that. But there's that period of time where you might be losing your own time showing an apprentice. So do you ever sort of implement that into a cost or a breakdown or anything like that? Or is it more of just a...
Is it for like apprentices and new employees for a point for probably the first 6 to 12 months, a 2-man job is going to have 2 plus an apprentice. They're not an asset.
You're not counting them as a...
They're not an asset. They're a body on site, but they're not an asset.
So it's an investment. That's a whole other subject in itself.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's how you're putting it into your cost.
Yeah. If we were using we needed a lot of people on site to pull a large cable in, then we'd include that. But if it was sort of like a job where you would just be sending an electrician and a mate, then we'd send that on. As you said, it's investing in the apprentice, and hopefully in years and months going on by that they'll be paying it back with service and good work.
Yeah. Do you find when you're on site, you're bound to come into things you didn't expect when you've quoted? And again, don't want to go too much into the quote side because we've done a separate video on that. But do you find that you're going to have to put an additional invoice if you come across something that's not right, where you might have to rectify, and that's additional time? And
yeah, there's always an element of that involved. You can't guess or predict every outcome. Experience will dictate having educated guesses and knowing how certain materials and certain cables and stuff are going to behave and what you can do with them. We'd always avoid trying to go back for extra costs. It doesn't look amazing, more money. But personally, one of the biggest sort of like gripes in the industry, and I really do hate it, is the price for a job, smash them with extras at the end. And that's when you're looking at 2 quotes, and that's why when I say we go into sort of like detail in our quotes, it's so you can clearly see what you're getting. You say, oh, well, that's 20 grand cheaper than you. We're going to go with them, and then they go, oh, you want that? No, that's extra. That's extra. That's extra. And every time they end up paying more. You're trying to sort of like educate customers to a point to read the quote, go through it, ask questions, and sort of see what you're getting for your money. I personally couldn't sleep knowing that we'll hit them with that, we'll hit them with that. It's just I just think it's morally wrong.
Yeah, I suppose that's the benefit of doing it. Like I said, I know people that don't bother with it anymore because I think it depends on the sector you're working in, and we've touched upon this in a few instances in the other episodes. But for you being predominantly industrial compared to someone who might be doing domestic, they might find they're constantly churning out detailed breakdowns for the smallest of things. Yeah. It can be tedious and time consuming. Whereas your relationship with bigger clients, you've probably built that trust, haven't you? Where you don't need to, but you can do if you think there's going to be things like you said where there might be unexpected issues.
Within the quote, we'd always try and say, look, this is what we've allowed for. If this sort of like happens or whatever, then this might be an additional cost. Just so they've literally got it there in black and white, and they know exactly what's going on. If you're in possession of all the facts and sort of like I say all the scenarios, and it's a lot easier to then say, oh well, I did explain to you this at the beginning, and this is obviously now this has happened.
Yeah, I think that's a good trust building. I won't say exercise, but if you've gone onto a job and you've ran into that issue and you've just said, look, I've not included that, I don't want to be coming in, it's going to look unprofessional. That person's going to be like, oh, he's done me a solid there. He's looked out for me. I will definitely use that company again. Yeah. And when you're in the situation you've a fairly new company, you've taken on new staff, expanding. That's how you win clients, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, we're trying to build a name for ourselves based on sort of like these core values that we all sort of buy into. It's got to be the same throughout, from your apprentice to pricing the job and dealing with customers. So.
Do you find when you do get involved in domestic, they're the type of customers who do ask more for breakdowns?
No, not so much. When dealing with sort of like larger like clients and sort of like MOD and stuff like that, they will, part of their sort of procedure is you would have to break everything down, and that's sort of like common practice really. So it's not massively different, but yeah, it all sort of depends. It's just on the it's customers the same with domestic or industrial. It just sort of depends on the type of person that you're doing.
That would freak me out. I think if I'm doing a breakdown and I've missed like a 10 grand battery bank system or something, that's it. That's, you know.
I've woke up in the night before and I've gone, oh, I've left that out on a quote, and I've got up in the morning straight away and checked. No, I've put it in. That's all right. But yeah, a small mistake like that
could cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, you know, just no attention to detail when you're doing a quote sheet or whatever.
Do you have anyone you can say, look, can you just second pair of eyes on this? Just make sure I've not missed something glaringly obvious. And
my fiance helps me out. Being dyslexic, she's my chief proofreader, and then if I've got larger quotes and it's all detailed out, and that's the perk of sort of like splitting it down, as I can say to her, right, just get a calculator out, go through it all, and just make sure that, you know, it is sort of like coming out true at the end. But yeah, it's it can be nerve wracking. One small mistake, one decimal point in the wrong place, and you can be.
There you go. There's a good helpful hint there. If you're doing big breakdowns, get someone to check it. Otherwise, you know, you might come unstuck there. Do you find customers are more willing to pay if they see a breakdown? If they're not seeing that breakdown, do you think that could make them reluctant to pay? Again, we sort of touched on this in another episode of customers that don't pay. But do you think by giving them a sort of detailed structure, it gives them a bit more of they'll be relaxed enough to think, right, I'm happy to pay that. I'm not gonna be a pain about it.
Not really too sure how to answer that, to be honest. Because if a customer's going to be a pain, they're going to be a pain. You could write a 20-page essay, and they're still going to quibble the finer details. I really don't think it sort of makes a difference. I say it's just the customer and their sort of their tendency to nitpick.
Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much brings us to a conclusion of that episode. I'd be interested again to find out your perspective, our audience's perspective, depending on the type of business setup you have and the sector of the industry you're working in. Are you providing breakdowns of costs, or have you found it's a waste of time? It'd be interesting to hear, and it'd be interesting for our viewers just to read the comments, see what other people are doing. So, you know, please get involved with that. That'd be great. And as always, Nigel, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, pleasure.
If you haven't followed Nigel on Instagram, please make sure you do. He's got a great page, which is
at Kinetic Electrical Limited. Give us a follow. Show us a bit of love.
There you go. So, also we've got a few episodes with Nigel on the show. So please make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification button below. You'll see more of myself and Nigel, hopefully giving you some helpful tips and talking things that you'll find interesting in the industry. So thank you, Nigel, and thank you all for watching.